Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Yes, it's back. Welcome back to the Doctor Who Daily. I'm bringing back this daily show about one of the greatest television storytelling universes of all time. I'm in such a Doctor Who vibe again. I love Doctor Who, and let me just say that, you know, it's the ultimate fantasy, really, this universe. Imagine you're living your mundane life, going to work every day. You're a bit like Rose Tyler. You're fed up. And then someone like the Doctor turns up and you get invited into that person's world. And it's escapism. Doctor Who is the ultimate fantasy. So in the first edition of the Doctor Who Daily, in a long time here on Movies TV Mad, we're going to talk about the new era. We're going to talk about Russell T Davies attempting to move away from the controversial chibnal era, and we'll be asking, who is Ruby Sunday? And in the second part of today's show, we'll be reviewing Rose, because I'm re-watching the revival from the beginning, and I've just finished watching Rose. It's absolutely tremendous, isn't it? So first of all, let's talk about Russell T Davies' mindset with his new era, RTD2, as everyone is calling it. So although Russell has supported Chris Chibnall's era and everything he attempted to do with The Timeless Child and, you know, casting the first female Doctor, the elephant in the room is that some people, fans, feel very strongly about there being a female Doctor. I'm not one of those people. And also, people were very upset, angry and offended about the Timeless Children changing Doctor Who canon. Again, I'm not one of those people. I actually think what he come up with is genius, and I know that's not going to be popular. The Timeless Child, the fact that the Doctor once worked with this mysterious outfit, sect of Gallifrey called the Division. It's very, very interesting. Unfortunately, Chris didn't really expand on it as much as he should have, because it's an excellent concept in my mere opinion. Maybe one day someone will expand upon it. Maybe that'll be me. Maybe I'll be showrunner one day. It's a dream of mine. It's never going to happen. Doctor Who is just so amazing. It will be my honour to work on Doctor Who. But again, never going to happen. So how does Russell T Davies, even though he supports Chris Chibnall as a friend and a fellow creative, you know, every showrunner of Doctor Who can only embrace their own vision. So I'm sure privately there are things that Stephen Moffat did and Chris Chibnall did that Russell wouldn't have done and doesn't agree with, because everyone has their own ideas what Doctor Who should be. I have my ideas. I have my vision for what I would make Doctor Who, and you as a fan have your visions too. We can respectfully agree to disagree about certain things, like me kind of thinking that the Timeless Child is an interesting concept. You don't have to hate me for thinking that, and I don't have to hate you for not thinking that. So it's clear Russell T Davies has been brought on board to bring the old vibe back, because Russell T Davies, make no mistake, created the most successful revival of all time. And I really just want to discuss briefly how he did it. You know, the Moffat era was very, very different. It was a visionary era. It was very different to what Russell did. And because it was so different, it took me a long time to embrace that. But now looking back at the Moffat era, it is visionary, it is exciting, and there was never a dull moment. Even with the things like I didn't like that he did. And the same with Chris Chibnall. I think we've been very lucky to have these knowledgeable Doctor Who fans, visionary Doctor Who fans, running this revival. I'm so grateful for this revival that it's extended Doctor Who's lifespan. It's amazing. But with revivals, you've got like the older audience who say the classic era is the best. You moved away from that. It's too epic. It's too glamorous. It's this. It's too that. Now, me, as an intelligent Doctor Who fan who grew up on the Peter Davison era, then left it behind after Baker and McCoy and came back to the movie, which I think, really, without that movie, we would never have seen the potential of Doctor Who with all the bells and whistles. So I think Doctor Who and its fans, you and me, owe a lot to Doctor Who the movie, warts and all, even if you don't like it. You know, talking of the timeless child, you've got the half-human idea, like the Doctor's half-human in that movie, and a lot of people hate that. Again, I think that's an interesting concept that never was expanded on because everyone's too scared when Doctor Who fans lose their shit about something, and that's a shame because you need to evolve this character. But why did Russell T Davies' era of Doctor Who, revival of Doctor Who, succeeded, and why did the Moffat era and the Chibnal era lose so much of the mainstream audience? Russell T Davies, when he reintroduced this show with the first episode, Rose, which we'll be talking later on about, kept it simple. That's why Rose was very relatable to young boys and young girls, and Christopher Eccleston was a huge star, a very famous man, and normally I'd say don't get famous people to play iconic characters or you just see those actors. But Russell kept everything simple and just expanded on the lore of Doctor Who. And, you know, at the end of the day, the Russell T Davies revival doesn't over-expand. It's not overly modern. It is modern. He does bring Doctor Who kicking and screaming into the 21st century, but he does it lightly. And, you know, the Doctor's still the Doctor. The TARDIS still looks like the TARDIS. It's been given a makeover, you know, when we go inside the TARDIS, but at the end of the day, it's still the TARDIS. As Russell answered the question when they said, is the TARDIS still going to be a police box? He goes, of course it is. It's beautiful. And that police box is iconic, historic and beautiful. Why would you change it? He said it's not going to be a Portaloo at the time. And why would you change such a magnificent kind of design for the TARDIS being a 1950s, 1960s telephone box? So what he did, he got rid of the stuff that couldn't fit in the 21st century, like the way females were being portrayed. And let's be honest, a lot of the females were portrayed in not very positive ways. I mean, I think Sarah Jane was portrayed in a positive way. But when you look at Perry wearing all those short, you know, those low-cut tops all the time and things like that, really wasn't the way to represent women in the right way. So a lot of that stuff went away. The companion was the companion and not the assistant anymore. So basically, we met Rose Tyler, and she was very relatable. And the show jumped off from there. And I mean, we're talking about 17, 18 years ago. I mean, I feel old just thinking how old that episode of Rose is, but we'll get into it a little bit later on. So let's stay on the subject. Who is Ruby Sunday? Well, this is an interesting thing as we talk about moving Doctor Who away from the highly controversial Chibnal era. I mean, look, it's nothing new for the revival to move away from an old showrunner and embrace its new showrunner's vision. And Russell T Davies is no different. So a lot of people are saying wrongly that Ruby Sunday is just another Rose Tyler. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of shit takes on Twitter. Twitter is a place of shit takes, I'm afraid. That the actress Millie, who I absolutely adore. I'm a Coronation Street fan. I've been watching her on Coronation Street for a while. And she's one of the best actresses in the world, actors in the world. She is amazing. This is like one of the most obvious castings to do. RTD may be a genius, but it isn't rocket science to bring Millie into Doctor Who. I mean, I saw Ncuti Gatwa's interview with her. It was amazing. When she starts talking, you're just wow. She's so relatable. She's so disarming. And this is what she brings into her characters as well. So Millie is very special and she's great casting. But who is Millie Sunday? Millie Sunday? I've got it wrong already. Who's Ruby Sunday? Have I been saying... Oh dear, well I ain't doing this video again. So yeah, so who is Ruby Sunday? First of all, right, this is something that I've plucked out of my backside. Ruby Sunday was born on Sunday, or maybe Ruby Sunday was born on Monday. That's something, a tagline, I think, that Russell may kind of bring into this character. Why? Because this is so modern day Doctor Who. This is so Russell T Davies or Stephen Moffat. Ruby Sunday, who was born on Sunday. So maybe we get her backstory at the beginning. Meet Ruby Sunday. Why is she called Sunday? Because she was born on Sunday. Yeah, maybe that's crap. Maybe you think that's cringe, and maybe Russell would just go, what is this guy on? I would never do anything shit like that. But everyone's making the assumption that she's like this, like modern day young female, because obviously she's young, she's attractive, she's vibrant, she's kind of wearing the similar outfit to how Rose used to dress. She looks like very modern day, like early 20s teenager, right? But what if you've got it wrong and she's not actually a modern day character? Maybe she's from the past. Maybe she's an alien. I've been begging for a character from the past or an alien for a very, very long time. So even though I can't tell you who Millie Sunday, and I've done it again, who Ruby Sunday is, I can certainly tell you that I don't think she's going to be Rose Tyler, because Russell said from the beginning when he returned, he wouldn't be coming back unless he'd be allowed to do something different. So I believe this is no Rose Tyler, and she's going to have an utterly different backstory. But what's important with her and Shooty's casting is branding. They're both young, vibrant, attractive, full of character, full of personality, even before we see them deliver their roles. This is important. This is important to get young kids and teenagers and people in their early 20s to go, yeah, I want to see more of these too. Lots of people getting upset already. I don't want people saying, we don't want them to fall in love and have a relationship. How do you know? This person may be, you know, Ruby Sunday may be asexual. She may not like anyone. She may be gay. She may be bi. We don't know. And I don't care about any of those things. I don't care what group she sits in. I care as how she portrays herself as a character. It's very important to deliver characters that leap off the page in storytelling. As a writer, I only know that too well. And something else, when you're doing the random police box travel and you get kind of these standalone stories, it's important that you give the audience great guest characters that we really care about. We saw it with Gwyneth in The Unquiet Dead, one of my favourite ever episodes of Doctor Who. It is a brilliant episode because the guest characters are actual characters. Their characterizations are amazing. And again, I will review that episode because I'm rewatching all of the revival. As I say, I'm on a huge Doctor Who vibe right now, and I'm so proud to be a fan. So I don't think Ruby Sunday lives on a council estate. I don't think it's going to be a single mother vibe, like being brought up with it by a single mum like Rose was. I think this is going to be utterly different. And if I was a betting person, she's either from the future, or she's an alien, or maybe she's just from Earth's history. Anyway, I think she will be something different. Again, I could be wrong, and as I always say on my channel to my subscribers and anyone who has the bad luck to kind of watch and consume my content, I say I do repeat myself a lot, and there's nothing wrong with being wrong. Of course, I have a bias that I would like her to be from the past of Earth's history, or from the future, or be something a little bit more unique than a modern day teenager. But I do, like I said in yesterday's video, I do accept making her a relatable modern day young female probably makes her more relatable. But making someone relatable isn't really about them looking like you or being from the environment you're from. It's about what they are as people. So as long as she's down to earth and she comes across as working class and everyone can kind of relate to her. And I think when you look at Millie, she's so utterly relatable as a person. I don't know Millie personally, but I feel like I do. When you see her in interviews, she's so down to earth, so relatable. Young girls, young boys, you know, people from all the communities, transgender communities, black communities, any communities are going to relate to her. So I think she's going to be brilliant, and I don't think she's going to be anything like Rose Tyler. So how is Russell T Davies actually going to move away from the Chibnal era? Well, we've seen it already with his branding. A young, vibrant, attractive doctor, talented actor. I think Shooty is going to be sensational. And even if you don't see him as the Doctor right now, And let me be honest, when Christopher Eccleston was cast, I didn't see him as the Doctor. I saw him as a great actor, but not the Doctor. Same with Tennant, Smith, and basically Eccleston, Tennant and Smith became my Doctors eventually. But in terms of Capaldi and Whittaker, unfortunately, I couldn't really embrace them as the Doctors ever through their whole run. It's not their fault. It's the way it was executed. It's not for everyone. Doctor Who is a difficult show because you change actors and visions all the time. And some of those different actors and different visions are not going to be for us. Even if we call ourselves Doctor Who fans, it's okay. But I do feel that the Chibnal era and Jodie Whittaker, I think we'll be kinder to it and we'll think kinder to it as we move away from it. We'll remember it kind of fonder and actually realise that maybe we were too harsh on Jodie and Chris, and maybe it was actually a better iteration than we actually remembered it by. And that's how Doctor Who works. It's so difficult to kind of love all of it because it's full of change. Doctor Who is about rewriting the character and the universe all the time. That is in the fabric of Doctor Who. So I believe that Russell is going to have to, I think, and let's get into something, by the way. One of these ways of moving away from the Chibnal era is not allowing if you believe this, the 14th Doctor, I don't actually believe Tennant is the Doctor, by the way, and I'll get into that shortly, but one of the ways he's trying to move away from the Chibnal era immediately is not allowing David Tennant to wear Jodie's costume. Now, personally, excuse me, but personally, the reason Russell has given for David not wearing Jodie's costume, I don't believe him. I think he's lying. He did say on Doctor Who Confidential, by the way, that years ago that he lies to the press, and I think he's lying here. I do think it's an own goal, the reasons that he gave, and I didn't really feel there was any need for him to say that, but that's Russell. So maybe he realises it's a bad take. He'll never apologise. He just won't mention it again. But yeah, I believe the real reason that David's not wearing Jodie's costume, it's moving away from a highly controversial era. It's about doing his own thing, inserting his new vision so people kind of forget about the stuff they didn't like about Chris's era. And I think this is the real reason he's changed her costume. I don't believe David Tennant is the 14th Doctor. Again, I think Russell is lying and being mischievous. I think that there's a chance that David Tennant could be Russell T Davies' new master. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous. A false regeneration has consequences, and I've actually looked into this, into Doctor Who lore, although I don't think it's ever happened before. Although it did happen, didn't it? It happened to Patrick Troughton's Doctor. They forced his regeneration. And there are consequences to that. I mean, according to die-hard Doctor Who fans, I mean, I'm a die-hard Doctor Who fan, but there's other fans who know more about kind of this stuff. And a false regeneration comes with consequences. So maybe the transference back from the 13th Doctor to the Master, maybe when kind of Yaz, you know, when she switched that back, maybe the Master and the Doctor became one person. And maybe when Jodie's Doctor regenerated, she regenerated into the Master. Because there's an interesting clip at the end of The Power of the Doctor when we see the next time footage, and Ncuti's Doctor says, "What the hell is going on here?" So I do believe he's around at the same time as this David Tennant entity that I don't believe is the Doctor. And I think all this has been caused, and the new costume regenerating with David Tennant is because something abnormal happened. And I think it's all to do with the false regeneration. And I think this is how Russell T Davies moves away quickly from the Chris Chibnal era, because like it or not, it is controversial, it isn't for everyone. And what Russell did with the revival, it was Doctor Who for everyone. So that's how I believe he's going to change Doctor Who and move it away quickly from the Chibnal era, which is sad, but I think all new visionaries who take over Doctor Who kind of bring their things into it. So it's not necessarily just like, oh my God, we've got to get away from that guy's vision because it's controversial, which I think that's a big part of it. And that's why David isn't wearing Jodie's costume, which personally I think is a shame, but I think these are the reasons. And you'll notice that with these 3 anniversary specials, they're going to be very different. They're going to be typical Russell T Davies, but we are going in a huge new visionary direction in Doctor Who, and you're going to notice that. So Ruby Sunday is nothing like Rose Tyler, I can assure you of that. So as I said on the top of the show, I am rewatching the entirety of the Doctor Who revival. I mean, I know it so well, and I'm obsessed with it, but I just watched Rose, and what I'm doing is as soon as I watch one episode, I'm skipping on to the Doctor Who Confidential cut down of that episode. So it's like going back to the past. And I do love the Doctor Who after shows. We always have kind of had Doctor Who after shows, even though they got rid of Confidential in the end. We still have little interviews and stuff, which is fun. But Doctor Who Confidential was the best version of the after show. You're talking about 20 minutes to half an hour, looking behind the scenes, and they were looking at the CGI and all of that. So let's go back and review the very first episode of the Doctor Who revival, Rose, written by Russell T Davies. So what I like about Rose, first of all, the central point of the beginning of this episode, the first 5-10 minutes, is Billie Piper's Rose Tyler. We get to know her very, very quickly. She's living with her mother. Her father's dead. We don't really get into the father element. We get into that in future episodes. And she has a boyfriend called Mickey, who isn't the nicest bloke in the world. He's probably got porn. He's probably sexting on his emails. And he's probably not faithful to her. He's not the best of boyfriends. So who is Rose Tyler? Rose Tyler is a lot like me growing up. She isn't happy in her life. She hates the mundaneness. She hates the routine of her life. She doesn't like her job. And she's looking for something or someone to take her away from this mundane routine. I think this is something that all people can relate to. So I think that's amazing. And that's why I said on the top of the show, the Doctor is so brilliant because it's this concept where not possibly, it couldn't have happened, but we all fantasize about that person coming and taking us away from our kind of reality, because how many times have you asked yourself, surely there's more to life? I still, at 50 years old, ask myself, what's the point of it all? You're born, you live, you die, what's the fucking point, right? Eat, drink, crap, you know. But anyway, you know, so I think the concept of Rose is beautiful. She isn't happy. Then all of a sudden she's at work, and then the Doctor turns up and rocks her world. It's brilliant. You see, making Doctor Who then in 2004, was it, even though it aired in 2005, was very difficult. It's easier to do it now. There's a higher budget. You got more they got more people working on it. It was a real challenge for the CGI. And I mean, the set decorators back then, just watching Doctor Who Confidential, was so talented. It was really an amazing team, but season 1 was very, very difficult. And I think that's why ultimately the producers and Eccleston fell out, because Eccleston was, and it's interesting seeing all the interviews from back then, him talking to BBC News about the show before it launched. And one thing I knew from the moment they announced that Doctor Who was coming back, everyone was so excited, even non-Doctor Who fans. It's interesting, prior the revival, I remember people saying the same thing about Doctor Who that they said about Superman, that they're not relatable. But isn't it interesting? Smallville was a huge hit, and so was the Doctor Who revival. So it's all about execution. Anything can be relatable, but let's get this clear. Doctor Who was relatable before the revival, but the revival made it such a bigger deal. So everyone was so hyped for Doctor Who returning. And the episode Rose works because Russell keeps it simple. It kind of at the beginning feels like classic Who a bit. Murray Gold's music, who is one of my favourite composers in the world, by the way, is very classic Who until we get to the second half of the episode. Then it becomes Russell T Davies' modern day Doctor Who. And so slowly but surely, you know, the Doctor sucks Rose into his world. And I love that moment when she first walks into the TARDIS and she kind of starts crying, because I don't like this whole thing where a companion walks in and goes, oh yeah, this is no big deal. I want the companion to act, if it's an everyday companion, I want you to act like I would react, right? That this is a big deal. There's these blimming dummies chasing us, right? These mannequins chasing us. What's going on? It's scary, because although it's very exciting to be taken away from your reality, the Doctor's world is a dangerous world, and there's a kind of selfishness about the Doctor. He doesn't want to be, he or she doesn't want to be on their own, but when he drags someone into this world, it is dangerous, and the Doctor has lost a lot of companions and people, and of course the Doctor feels terrible about this. But because literally the Doctor is immortal, they obviously have this kind of regeneration cycle. It's a bit weird now with the Timeless Child, actually, if you think about it. So the Doctor was the source genetic code for regeneration. So how were they able to limit the Doctor's regeneration? So that's interesting. Shouldn't the Doctor have limitless regenerations? Or maybe Tectayun actually found a way via the Doctor and that genetic code to limit the Doctor's regenerations too. An interesting point. I know I'm thinking too deeply, but I do about these things. That's why I find the Timeless Children very interesting. And I know most people hate that idea because it changes something, but something different isn't necessarily bad. Anyway, and so what you meet is an ordinary young woman that anyone can relate to. Men, boys, women, girls, whoever. She's just an everyday person, and her life dramatically changes in this episode. I remember watching Rose and just thinking, by the end of it, I was so hyped up, and I quickly turned to BBC Three for Doctor Who Confidential. Seeing Russell for the first time, because I didn't know who he was prior to that, and seeing his passion and his knowledge of Doctor Who inspired me even more. It's just great because it's part of our British history. Doctor Who matters. It's deeper than just being a fictional character, a fictional universe. It's British television history in the making, and this is why Doctor Who is very, very special to me. Many reasons. First of all, the concept is absolutely brilliant. So what this episode does very smartly, it gives you some nostalgia, but it's also a modern day take. What's clever about this, they don't try and change what Doctor Who is. TARDIS, companion, Doctor, aliens, monsters. It's just more modern day, keeping the good stuff and getting rid of the bad stuff. So Rose is an absolutely perfect episode. I like the bit at the end when the Doctor's asking Rose to come with him and she says no, and you can see the sadness in Christopher Eccleston's eyes. It's so well done because he's so lonely. But he ain't taking no for an answer. He vanishes and comes back again. Did I mention it's also a time machine? And I love that bit. So Rose looks at Mickey and says, thanks. And he goes, for what? And she goes, exactly. Because she loves, the only person she's going to miss is her mum, because her mum genuinely loves her. And let me just say this. Camille Caudry, I'm not calling her a camel, she's gorgeous. Camille Caudry, who plays Jackie Tyler, is my favourite parent of any companion. She's so good. She's so amazing. And yeah, she was great. And I'm so glad that she recurred in the show so much. Who knows, we may see her again now Russell's back. And so she's off on this brand new adventure. And, you know, in my next review, when we review End of the World, episode 2 of Russell's revival of season 1, this is a great episode. Again, Rose becomes even more relatable when she goes to the future and all of a sudden it dawns on her she literally got in a car with a stranger without asking any questions, and now she's in the future and she's a little bit intimidated by that. Maybe she's feeling, maybe this isn't for me. And you know what? That's the most natural feeling in the world. And this is what Russell did. He made Doctor Who relatable for a brand new audience. And that's why this revival still works today. This has been the Doctor Who Daily here on Movies TV Mad. I'm so glad to bring you this show back Because as I say, my feelings for Doctor Who right now are so full of nostalgia. I've always loved Doctor Who, but right now, my peak vibe is with Doctor Who. So I'm going to be reviewing these episodes every day, probably talking about a multitude of things as well. So yes, the Doctor Who Daily is back. I admit your host with the most, just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. So until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.